Today, we have a lot of Knicks content to break down today, but most importantly, it's the Knicks season opener. It's the playoff rematch that we have been waiting for. The Knicks against the Indiana Pacers. And after the loss against the Celtics, you know the Knicks are going to come into tonight's game ready to make a statement. Joining me today to help break down all of this and so many other topics today, we're talking about a multi-time Emmy Award-winning sports anchor. He has just taken home the Emmy for Best Anchor. You know him for his coverage of the Rangers and the Knicks. Please help me welcome the always amazing and great Bill Pidto. Bill, what's going on, man? Thank you so much for joining the show today. It's great to have you back.
Right. Troy, thank you so much for having me. Just so you know, for that Emmy, I pay off the committee on a yearly basis. That helps.
Oh, well, I don't want to talk about how much you pay me as well to talk about it as well. So, you know, we can keep that under the wire there. But I appreciate you joining so much. We have a lot of people in Knicks Nation here. Happy to see you and happy to chat with you today. And obviously, we're going to get right started because I know you have to go really quick. So the one thing I want to get started with really quick, and obviously everybody wants to talk about, is that game against the Indiana Pacers tonight, the home opener, Bill. And with this game, obviously, it's going to be the rematch with the Knicks going up against the Indiana Pacers. That game, again, is tonight at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be on ESPN. But, of course, everybody like me is probably going to be watching on MSG for Bill. And for everybody else is going to be working that line as well, too. So, Bill, what I wanted to ask you, though, with the Indiana series is obviously coming out against the Knicks and the Celtics game. We saw what happened there. We saw what happened with Boston and obviously where the Knicks came up a little bit short. Going up against Indiana, what are you looking for in tonight's game against Indiana? What are some things you're looking for the Knicks to do?
So Indiana returns pretty much everybody. And, of course, they beat the Knicks at MSG, as you've mentioned, last May in Game 7 of the second round. Indiana went to the conference finals and actually played Boston very well, except for the late stages of those games when Boston was able to pull ahead and win a lot of those contests. Indiana, pretty much the same roster. Knicks, I think we really need to maybe give it some time based on what we saw against Boston. Tibbs talked about defensive indecision. I think that has a lot to do with the new pieces with Cat and Mikal Bridges. They got to figure out how to get the defensive rotations down. So what I'm watching tonight more than anything else is how the Knicks are able to defend the Pacers. Because the Knicks on offense against Boston, good enough. They shot well enough to win the game. The problem was on the defensive end of the floor. And one of the other things is Boston with the 29 threes. I don't know if any D could have slowed them down. But what I'm going to watch tonight is the Knicks on defense. That, to me, is most important. And to Tibbs, it's most important. It's not how his team scores, but how his team defends.
Absolutely agree with that as well, too. And the defense is obviously the main thing that everybody was taking out of the game against the Celtics. Definitely something that we want to see cleaned up. And I agree with you with the offense. I mean, the Knicks shot, I believe, 55% against the Celtics. So offensively, things were working. And I think really the chemistry aspect of things has to kind of clean up before we can see this team really become what I think it can be. But going back to what you were saying about the Pacers game, one thing I wanted to know from you is the matchup that you're looking to see tonight, because there's a couple of matchups that are going on tonight that might be key here. Some people are thinking maybe Cat and Miles Turner. Other people are saying Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton. For you, what do you think the matchup is to watch tonight for the Indiana Pacers and the Knicks?
So Cat averages 27.3 against the Pacers. That's the most he averages against any team. So that's something to watch. Turner obviously likes to pull Cat away or the other five away from the basket. He's a perimeter five like Karl Anthony Towns. So it's going to be interesting to see how far away Cat pulls Turner away and how far away Turner pulls Cat away. Also, you have to watch Nembhard potentially on Brunson. Halliburton is not shooting the ball well. He didn't shoot the ball well overall last year. And against Detroit in the season opener, only 1 of 9 from downtown. He played really well, as we all remember, unfortunately, against the Knicks last year in Game 7 with 26 points. But if Halliburton does not shoot well, I think that's really going to hurt the Pacers because he can go ice cold, and he was ice cold against the Pistons. Even though Indiana won their first game against Detroit, Halliburton had an off shooting night.
And I'm glad that you mentioned about Halliburton shooting because that's something I'm going to watch tonight with the Pacers. Just like Boston in a way, the Pacers can also shoot that three ball extremely well, especially if you give them enough room to do it. And, you know, mentioning the Boston series, and for everybody watching on the live stream for YouTube now, you see the score. Boston beat the Knicks 132 to 109. Not only did we allow Boston to hit 29 threes, but it was also the 61 amount of threes that they took hitting 48% of them. That was the issue there. And I think the defensive issues for me, Bill, like we were talking about, is the most glaring. But do you think it's too early to worry about these defensive issues? Is it more of a chemistry issue that we have to wait and kind of see them gel for maybe 10 to 15 games before we start raising alarms? Or is the defense so alarming right now because it's a Tom Thibodeau staple that it's something that needs to be corrected immediately?
Well, I think you got to give this time. But other things to think about is that the schedule is a real challenge here. After tonight, the Knicks host Cleveland on Monday. Then Wednesday, they begin a 4-game road trip at Miami. And it also begins a stretch of 6 of the next 7 on the road, all against pretty decent teams. So important to win tonight, important to beat Cleveland, because then you got 6 of the next 7 on the road. And I think defense is based on familiarity with one another, the way that they have to rotate, the way they have to switch. Tibbs always talks about being tied together. And I think for these guys to be tied together on defense is just going to take us some time.
Absolutely agree with that as well, too. I think a lot of people were criticizing them for the offense a lot of the times. And for me, I was only looking at the defense because I'm not worried about this team offensively. They're too good not for that end to come. So I definitely believe in that. And I was looking at the rookies as well, Bill, because, for a team that's looking to contend for a championship, you wouldn't think that this team would have the amount of rookies that we do that are performing the way that they are. Because a lot of times we're talking about the rookies sometimes a little bit more than some of the starters. We're talking about Tyler Kolek. We're talking about Ariel Hukporti. We're talking about Pacome Dadiet. For all the rookies that you saw recently, who has impressed you the most out of the rookies thus far?
So they're going to need help from the wing position because Shamet, we all know, hurt his shoulder and was cut. You got Payne, you got McBride, and you have a big, whether it's Hukporti or Jericho Sims with Achua out. So to me, and I don't think you can play Kolek, Payne, and McBride. So Dadier of the 3 would seem to be one of the rookies that may get some run on a regular basis until they sort out the wing position off the bench. And so far, he looks like he's got a pretty good skill set on offense. I don't know that he is up to speed on defense, but it looks like he can score. Looks like he's got a decent shot. Looks like he moves pretty well. So of the 3 and going forward, given the lineup situation, the shortages on the bench, I think Dadier is someone that may get some run here.
The 3 ball, when he's shooting that thing and the way he moves without the ball, Bill, is amazing. There's sometimes he's moving without the ball. Brunson caught him one time with a great pass, needled it through, and he was able to cut to the basket. I love the fact that a lot of the rookies are moving without the ball because it looks like that's a staple of this team. Tom Thibodeau wants all of them, all of the players on the floor, including even Preston Achua at one point when he was talking about him when he was available, that he loves when he's in motion because he's almost unstoppable. So I do think we're going to see more of that. One thing I think we're going to see more of as well, too, is just the extraordinary play, Bill, of Deuce McBride. I mean, he has just been on a tear recently. You could even go back to the postseason, now going into the preseason, and now in the regular season. He is the most consistent off the bench in terms of what we saw last night, the other night against Boston. 22 points, 8 of 10 from the field, 2 assists, 4 of 5 from 3. He even mentioned as well, too, talking about the game against Boston. That was championship level basketball. And even though he thinks chemistry is part of it, he understands that going into a game like that, you need to be a little bit better. But Deuce, I don't think he could have looked any better than he did against Boston. What are your thoughts about Deuce McBride? And do you think potentially he could be somebody that could win 6th Man of the Year this year for the Knicks?
Well, he had a breakout season last year, and he signed a contract extension for $3 million a year. It's got to be the best contract in the whole league. Playing somebody like that, only $3 million a year, and the productivity you're getting from him. Tibbs always talked about how well McBride shot in practice, and they figured, the coaching staff, that it was just a matter of time before he started to make shots in games. It started to happen last year. He was 41% from downtown during the regular season. He was really effective in the playoffs, and now in game 1, they needed his scoring. 8 out of 10, as you mentioned, 22 points. He is potentially a huge weapon off the bench. And and Payne's very effective, too. You can make the case that the Knicks really haven't had a surefire point guard backup behind Brunson. And if Payne can play 12 to 15 minutes a game and be effective, that could really help Brunson in terms of the wear and tear. So obviously there's a lot of optimism about Payne and McBride. I think the concerns are off the bench right now up front.
Absolutely, Bill. And I think that if McBride can continue to get consistent minutes off the bench, I think the impact is just going to be phenomenal. I mean, they're running offense through him sometimes. Sometimes he's playing off ball, but whatever his role seems to be, no matter what it is, when he touches that ball, he puts it up it lets it fly, and it just seems to go in. I love what I'm seeing from McBride, really from this entire team. And going into this year, Bill, they have considered the Knicks more than any other year that I've been ever alive, really, watching this team. They're a contender with a window that they're considering for maybe 2 or 3 years. Now, I've never seen that before. It's early, I know. It's like we have a lot of time left to go here and a lot of games left to play. But if you can, please give me a prediction here. With the championship team that we have right now, do you think this roster, as presently constructed, will be able to get that championship at the end of this season, or do we have to wait a couple more years to get that?
I think if healthy, and that's a big if, the Knicks can absolutely contend. I think for me, I'd like to see them take the next step and make it to the conference final. If they get to the conference final, lose to Boston, that would be difficult, but at least it's a step forward. Keep in mind here, the last 2 years, the Knicks have lost in the second round of the playoffs. Miami, and then last year in Game 7 against Indiana. Got to take the next step. You have everybody pretty much signed here. Cat's got 3 years. Brunson has the extension. OG re-signed. He's got a long-term deal. They can redo Bridges next summer. McBride is signed. So all the key pieces on this team are locked up. So you get the core going, you get the chemistry going, and we could be looking at a bona fide championship contender, not only this year, but for the next 2 or 3 years for sure.
I'm hoping that's the case because I have not smiled this much, Bill, for my entire life as a Knicks fan. From the moment that we started making the moves, and obviously everybody feels a certain way about the moves initially, but when you take a step back, you look at the team, you look at the offensive firepower they have, the defensive power that we have when everybody's healthy, things are clicking. There was one quarter in the Wizards game in the preseason, Bill. I forget exactly what game it was, but it was where everything was clicking. The defense was right, the offense was right, the pick and roll was right. And you saw what this team can look like. And for me, I think that was a glimpse into the future. Because if we see that type of team come into the season in the next couple of games, I think they can beat anyone on any given night. I think the sky's the limit for them. Would you agree with that?
I agree. Wizards game, it was, I think I may have called that one where they forced
Right.
30, 16 steals. And in the third quarter, Brunson and Cat had pick and roll after pick and roll after pick and roll. So that's the model for things potentially going forward is this lockdown defense. Obviously, it needs to get better than what we saw against Boston, and the ability for Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns to run that pick and roll and just drive opposing defense is crazy.
And that is the main thing that I cannot wait to see because the pick and roll, we already saw it, Bill. It's killer when it's running and it's looking well. And if Brunson and Cat can get that going a little bit better, and obviously they've acknowledged the chemistry has to get better. Once it does, it's going to be outstanding. But Bill, I know you have to go. I really do appreciate all the time that you've given us here today. I wish we can get to the fan questions. Maybe next time we can do that. But again, Bill, it's always great to talk to you. Make sure you follow Bill. His @'s on screen, and he will be on live tonight as well, too, for MSG Networks at 7 p.m. Is that right, Bill, covering the pregame, or this starts at 6:30 tonight?
Pregame at 7, game at 7:30. We got the whole can't wait. Great to be on, and hopefully we can do it again soon.
I can't wait. It's going to be great when we can have you on again. And maybe if the Knicks are, having a win streak, blowing everybody out, we'll have you on again and we can see how we think about this team and how we feel about them again. But again, Bill, thank you so much for joining the show. It's always a pleasure. We'll have you on again. Everybody say adios to Bill, and thank you again, Bill. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, my man. We'll see you soon, okay?
All right, buddy. Have a good one.